Welcome to the FiddleHed lesson. Hey folks, I am teaching you all how to read sheet music. This is the Note Reading for Fiddlers course, and we're going to learn more about how to read rhythms on the staff. This is the second lesson on reading rhythm. We're going to learn about half notes, eighth notes, time signatures, and how all these different rhythm lengths are interrelated. Okay, sound good? Let's get started. So, I'm going to first just review a few things I touched upon last time. I'll move through it quickly, and if any of that is confusing, then please refer back to the reading rhythm lesson 1 I did. So we're going to use a screencast from the FiddleHed page, and there's a professional drawing of a half note. My PhD in art really paid off. And now we're moving down to, so we're just going to review a few things. Last time we learned what quarter notes are. We play them like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 quarter notes in a bar. Each quarter note is 1/4 of a bar. Okay? Then we go down to eighth notes. Eighth notes are played like, they're half as long as quarter notes, or you could think of it as they're twice as quick. 2 eighth notes takes up the space of 1 quarter note. Eighth notes are 1/8 of a bar, and we count them like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And it may be hard for you to at first count and play at the same time, so you may want to separate those tasks. First count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and play. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. Alright, so just continuing down, we look, and here's a pattern that's pretty common that I teach a lot with scales called Tukka. Or if you were to count it, it'd be 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Played is short, 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 long, long. And if we look at the sheet music, with a little snippet, we see that there are 4 eighth notes and 2 quarter notes. Let's look at this next one, hoedown on D. By the way, this whole lesson is on the D, open D string, keeping it real simple, focusing, laser focused on rhythms. So, hoedown on D, what are the notes? What's the first note? Is it quarter and eighth? What's the second note? Is it a quarter and eighth? What's the third? Alright, so I'm going to tell you now. First is a quarter note, followed by 2 eighth notes, quarter, 2 eighths. And notice that this pattern repeats. We have a hoedown one here, we have 2 hoedowns in a row. The more you notice repetition with sheet music, the easier it will be. So you want to proactively look for things that repeat. And I'm going to be going deeper into that with fiddle tunes on a lesson called Finding Patterns in Sheet Music. It's either going to be, I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it'll be out soon if it's not already out. And so before we get into learning half notes and 16th notes, I just want to, actually we could just jump in, and I think we'll just jump in and talk about them and then just do some exercises. A kind of a philosophy point is that all this reading and theory could be kind of, if you just keep it in your head the whole time, it could be difficult. Some people are really good, they have a very mathematical mind, and they're able to hold all these kinds of abstract things. I myself do better when I'm doing something, and so that's what I hope you will, that might help you too, is that the more you play what you're learning with reading, the more you play your theory. Once we learn theory, the more sense it will make, just to dive in and play that thing. And then you have something to work with. You have some kind of it's like data you've collected, okay? So, all right, half notes. So notice they look like quarter notes, but they got a space. They're little donuts with sticks attached. All right, so notice there's 2 of these per bar. All right, each one takes up half the bar. And we count them, they each get 2 counts. So we would count them like so. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, if that's hard, just count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Remember, in the previous lesson, we learned how to clap. You can count and clap at the same time. Great technique for figuring out tricky rhythms. If you're a more advanced player and you're bored by this lesson, I hope you at least take away that, counting and clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's do that on the next piece. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that, I'm going to point to it on the screencast, is a half note followed by 2 quarter notes. And notice that it makes a long, short, short, long, short, short. So I like to call this the slow hoedown, just as an example. In general, the hoedown pattern that we did earlier of a quarter and 2/8 is more common, but just so you can kind of hear things and put things in perspective, I like to do that. All right, so half notes are more uncommon than quarter notes and 1/8 notes. Quarter notes and 1/8 notes are your bread and butter with fiddle music. If you're a classical violinist watching this or from some other instrument, this may not be the case, but with fiddle music, we really stick to these 2, and then there's a pesky thing we'll learn called the dotted note, dotted quarters, dotted 1/8, that is, you'll see a bit too. But it's good to know half notes, they do come up. And similar to that, 16th notes, they come up as well, and it's so it's worth being able to recognize them. 16th notes, they are 1/16 of a bar, or there are 16 of them in a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We count them like this. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and all right, cool. So it will get harder. I mean, just having all 16th notes is not too hard to read. It's when we mix things up that it starts to become tricky. Okay, so now we're going to try to practice this with an exercise, and they're going to be a mixture of notes, so it'll be challenging. If you took the last lesson and did some of the exercises, you'll know that that they repeat at the beginning of each cycle, of each 4-bar cycle. You'll hear a bell sound. That'll help you find your place in case you get lost. So let's just start by looking at it and listening. 2, 3, 4. And we start over there. Okay, so the first bar, that if you've taken the previous lessons, it's starting to make sense. We're gonna go 4 quarter notes and then 2 half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then notice the third bar is the same as the first. So being able to recognize patterns makes it a lot easier. So we know that that's just 4 quarter notes again. And then a long half note, and then 2 quarter notes. All right, so you may need to kind of look at each single bar and figure out what's going on. And it's done, the exercises are somewhat progressive, so they'll build on each other. So once you start recognizing 4 quarter notes, you may, I'm not sure if I did that exact same thing. So look at exercise 3. It has that same pattern, 4 quarter notes, 2 half notes, but then some other stuff in the middle. So basically, the more you learn certain things, they'll help you. They'll be like anchor points for getting things later. So I really recommend doing these exercises a lot, and starting by just reading and trying to figure out the patterns and listening. And then after a while, it's going to start to make sense. Try to play along. This is the intuitive note reading process. The final step could be, like, after you've done it a few days in a row, stay with the same set of exercises, and then let's go back to the first one and see if you can do it without even hearing that play along track, just reading it. And then play it to check to see if you got it right. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start it over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I'm checking it. All right, so I'm going to keep moving because I want to get through a few more things. And I think you get the idea of that. We're going to do one more exercise that's going to be fun that I just wrote, threw together sheet music for before filming. I don't even have audio for it yet. So it's super double plus bonus exercise 10. Basically, it's all the note lengths we've learned so far. So I'm just going to play it. I want you to watch, and then we'll pause and talk about it. So 1, 2. So let me first just say, I'm going to point to it on the screen. It starts with half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, then 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, and so on. So I'm gonna add a few more things like that soon, but it's a good set of exercises right now. So I'm gonna close the lesson with something a little bit more abstract. That's what you have to practice. So here's another highly professional drawing of that sort of shows the relationships of all the notes we've done. Let's start with the most basic level, the quarter note. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of these gets one beat, 2, 3, 4. There's one per beat. Eighth notes, notice that there's 2 eighth notes for each quarter, so there's 2 per beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 16th notes, there are 4 16th notes for every quarter note, or 2 16th notes for every eighth note. There's 16 per bar. All right, and so we say there are 4 16th notes per beat. Now we can go the other way and say, well, we have half notes. There are 2 quarter notes in a half note. So each half note is 2 beats long. 1, 2. Or beats isn't like counts, would maybe be a better way to put it. And then whole notes, the big donut at the top, is 4 beats. That lasts for an entire bar or measure. It's counted 4, 1, 2. So you'll play a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on. We hardly ever see these. Usually the only time you see a whole note in a fiddle tune is the very last note. And even then it doesn't always happen. It's not always written that way. So, but it's kind of cool to know about it and see the relationship there. And again, I make the point with a snippet from Arkansas Traveler that most fiddle music is quarter notes and eighth notes. So we're going to close out this lesson with a theory thing, and I hope it doesn't it's not confusing or anything. It's called the time signature. So the time signature basically tells us how to count. 4/4 means we count 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the simplest way to say it. When you hear a band leader count off 1, 2, 3, 4, and the band starts playing, they're in 4/4. 4/4 is the most common time signature on earth. Especially now, music's kind of more homogenized, and anything like dance beat, most dance music, rock songs, pop songs, it's all 4/4. It's probably like makes up over 80% of the music. I don't know, I just made that number up, but it's a lot. Okay, and so just a little thing to watch out for. Another way to write 4/4 is with this C symbol, which means common time. All right, so ironically enough, it's not that commonly written that way, but it's called common time, and but I think it's confusing. Most of the time, when I see fiddle music, it's written 4/4 instead of the common time. All right. Finally, are there other time signatures? Yes, there are. And if you've played a few fiddle tunes, you've probably played them in some different time signatures. So I'll tell you the most common ones for fiddle music are 3/4, which are waltzes. They're counted 1, 2, 3, 1, like Black as Crow. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3. All right. So there are 3 quarter notes for each bar. I'm not going to go too much into it now because I don't want to throw you off. I want to keep you in 4/4, keep you practicing these things. But for those of you who have that burning question that you want answered, the other main one you'll encounter in fiddle music is 6/8, which is jigs, like Kerfunken jig or swallowtail jig. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6/8. 6/8 notes per bar. All right, just let it settle. Don't if this is starting to sound like the nightmare of math from elementary school, don't worry about it too much. Let it sink in. Let it sink in. It will make sense. Okay, that's it. I have a full page of sheet music, so you can print this, which is I think good for learning to read. Something I didn't mention in the last lesson, if you're really serious about reading, you may want to get a book of sheet music, a blank book of sheet music. I don't have one handy. And you can just write things that you've learned. It will really help you to pick this up. It's kind of like the overachiever step. So if you don't feel like doing that, don't worry about it. But it will help you. Anytime you learn a tune, simply copying any tune simply copying out, use a pencil so you can erase it, will help you to learn this. So cool, that's it for the reading rhythms. The next rhythm lesson will deal with something tricky called dotted notes. And then, believe it or not, you have most of what you need to know to learn to read. If you take the intuitive note reading approach and really learn to integrate and connect what you hear with what you see. Thanks for watching, and leave questions and comments. I've been very slow with answering them and emails, and I apologize for that, but for these note reading lessons, I'm really trying to stay on top of it because I want to hear what you think, because I'm developing this course as I go. All right? Cool, thanks for watching. Go fiddle with it. Yeah. Bye. Go to FiddleHed.com for a progressive, step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more. Thanks for watching the video. Excellent. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.